Being 1:30, policy and governance, roll call. Notice meeting was properly posted Friday, May 27th. D1, D2, and D3 are here. Entertain a motion for approval of minutes, May 17th.
Thanks for waiting, Joe. Motion to approve.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And then item 2, discussion and possible action regarding invoices received from James Law Firm.
As you can see before you, and as you can see from Joe's reaction, Ms. Thomas compiled a one-pager for us to show all of the invoices that Mr. James is claiming that we owe from the FYs that they're saying that we owe from. We have one that we have paid, even though it shows different than the invoice that they provided.
The very first invoice that was April 1st of 2019, we paid that one. But the amount we paid was not what they're billing for the late payment now. We paid more than what they billed for the late payment, because they're saying that it was only $3,700 and we paid $3,798. All the others, I have not received these invoices in emails or in person. And for 2019, 2020, and 2020, 2021, we do not have any signed contracts. He sent copies of contracts with his signature on them, but they never went across the board.
Okay.
And he sent those with the past due invoices.
Did you take a look at the contract that he sent that he signed?
That he signed? Mm-hmm. Yes.
Presumably then that he read?
I didn't hear you.
Presumably if he signed a contract, he read it.
Yes.
Did that contract require monthly invoicing? Or did it allow for lump sum?
It did not have lump sum. It just said how much per hour he was going to charge, up to 1/10 of an hour, or as low as 1/10 of an hour. But in the letter for the invoice that we did pay, when he sent it, he attached a letter. It's dated May 16th, 2019 to Commissioner Calvi. And he said in here, I will be sending all billing invoices monthly from here on. And he hasn't. The lawsuit that we had before with him and the problems we had getting the other invoices paid, they were on the Harrison case, not on the Newkirk Johnson. I just need some direction on what to tell him to do.
Yeah, Kelly, I don't know. You're gonna have to. You can go sit. You don't have to. Joe, similarly to previous issues with this same firm, we can go back and try to find. Let's see if services were rendered. Let's. Kelly says that she has a stack of stuff. I'm sure that you're each like me and would like to see that stack to see exactly what's in it before you make any sort of decision and probably go on too much further.
If I understand correctly, he did send a copy of all the past due invoices to District 1, and I forwarded a copy to Michael.
That's how it ended up here. Is that correct, Cody?
That's what?
He sent invoices to us and we gave them to Kelly to have her place them here.
All right.
So last time we because of the nature of the potential claim, we discussed this in executive session. I'm wondering, would it be an appropriate venue once again to discuss? I think then that's what I would like to.
Okay, I'm not against
To
that.
see.
I just kind of like to see whatever they sent. You.
I
And
can
I'll
go get
get
all the
with Kelly.
copies off my desk.
I'll get with Kelly
I
and get
didn't.
that.
I haven't reviewed it.
Yeah. So, Kelly, no direction. We'll discuss.
Yeah, the
we'll
direction
discuss
would be to
this.
work with Aaron to get it the appropriate executive session item styled
On the BOCC?
for the.
June 14th, policy and governance.
Okay.
Thanks,
And then
Michael.
that's where we'll.
All right, any other items
I'll
on this?
forward the email to you also.
And then,
Okay.
go ahead and receive this.
Yeah, go ahead and receive it. That's
Motion to
fine.
receive the document,
Second.
Miles.
Motion is second to receive this document. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Kelly.
Item 3, discussion possible action regarding relocation transition questions, social services.
Good morning or afternoon.
Hello.
Used to these being in the morning. We wanted to get some guidance on a couple of things related to our relocation. One being, we had discussed before in BET on both of these questions, but things that will be ongoing costs at the facility that we're leaving. How do we want to transition those over? Most of the costs will go away, but some will, of course, remain with some basic utilities, pest control probably, or just security, fire, and so on. And we just want to make sure that we're doing a warm handoff to somebody with those expenses. So we're just looking for some guidance on that.
Keith's here. So on those types of items that she has enumerated here, utilities, pest control, security, things of that nature that are going to need to continue, that I presumably are in your budget that was just approved, or were they pulled out?
Pulled out as of June 30th.
And were those items placed into Mr. Monroe's budget, since it would seem logical to me that the upkeep of this facility would fall to him since he's the property director?
Yeah, Keith, you gave an amount to mothball the building, correct? Or was that something that just you and I discussed?
Hang on real quick, just to address Joe's. We will look at this if we need to at the September supplement. However, in Keith's budget, well, actually not in Keith's budget, in the general government budget, there is some flexibility for utilities and whatnot to be able to be potentially paid for out of there. That's where a lot of the big utilities are paid, not out of the facilities budget.
Okay.
We never spoke to dollar figures,
I just
but
know that
obviously keeping basic electric service, heat on, not necessarily air conditioning, but those services that are currently in operation, those systems that are currently in operation, we don't want those to deteriorate any further until some idea as to how the building will be used can be determined.
So my understanding then, Cody, is general government can absorb these costs until September. Okay.
And we can certainly, if it would be of help, we can, I don't know how, I'll check with Keith and see what would be of use, but we can certainly give him like what our monthly expenditures would be if that helps with an estimate, or to Cody, either one. But anyway, we're happy to do what we can do to be of help in transitioning it. We just didn't want to stop and then it not be picked up, obviously.
So the funding for Route 19 was taken out of your budget?
No, so that's my second question is, no, Route 19 is in our budget. There was discussion of moving it to a different fund, but I don't think that was determined ultimately. So it resides in our budget. And we're at contract processing time. An added little glitch to that is that they came in after our budget request with an amount that was slightly higher than what we had budgeted. So it's a question of, do we want it to remain in our budget or remain in our budget until September and then it transitions, or how do we want to do that? And then do you want us to go ahead and process on the front end?
You're saying Route 19 budget from Embark, the contract was for more money?
Yeah, it was for an additional $5,694.45.
And is this contract renewed annually?
Yes.
And has it been renewed for next year?
No, that's where we're at right now, is we're at that point to where we need to renew it. They sent us a contract with the higher requested amount, but we aren't certain if the contract is going to continue with our department or go to a different fund. We're happy to process it.
Well, and the original reason for this contract was to assist folks going to your location that we're no longer going to be at. Is that correct?
In part.
In part, it's the primary function was to provide transportation services to the northeast part of the county. And then also our facility is located out there, but it goes far past our facility.
So historically, what I learned about this route, because I thought it was just somewhat newer. Like
No.
when we came on and started paying for the route and paying a large portion of the route, what you informed me is that that route actually existed beforehand. How long have we paid for the route? And then why, if we're not utilizing the route, I understand the citizens, but I also understand that the city also has a duty to move their people around to their city, county health departments as well.
The route did not exist before the city and the county got together. It was Shirley Darrell and Willa Johnson, I believe, who came together and said, we need to put a route to service the Northeast Quadrant. So it was determined at that time that that would be an equally shared expense between the two municipalities. So that's when the route started, and how the route started. I don't know that they can continue outside of city boundary without partnering with somebody that's, you see what I'm saying?
Trying.
Okay, I'm
So
just,
this is the third different story I've heard about the founding of the route, and probably the one that's spot on, because I could see those two working together to make this happen.
uh-huh. But it began in the economic development line item, and then down the road was moved into the social services budget. And that's might be something that you've heard me mention before, that you're seeing as a different.
One, we removed a stop, to which, if I recall correctly, we actually increased our payments to the fund, correct? To add the stop, which is why I think we originally moved it over to your budget, was we were adding that stop. We were going to pay more for it because we were increasing their cost.
I'm not sure I can answer that.
Okay.
I don't know, Miles, that I recall. I cannot say definitively, but I believe that stop had always been part of Route 19. I mean, this route has been, I think, I have to go back and look. If it was
If it was Shirley Darrell,
Shirley, it
Johnson,
predated me, and
yeah.
I know when I started with Commissioner Roth, this was in line. If it needs to be moved to economic development, move it to economic development. This is a vital service that we provide the residents of Northeast Oklahoma City. It goes to Mary Mahoney, one of the major providers of medical services. So if it needs to go to economic development, let's move it to economic development.
We don't mind having it in our budget. We just want to know
But they're
which way
asking
to
for
go.
5,000 more.
Well, actually,
5,000.
what's the total contract cost?
The total contract, as it is right now, is $115,941. The new amount is $121,635.45.
As it relates to let's see. The authority to actually provide this service with what we have been learning is that we're somewhat limited in our ability to do certain things within social services that we have traditionally done. Is this one of those things that statutorily we can do?
I don't see this as a, and I could be wrong, I've never really viewed this as a social services activity. It's not a function of ours.
Well, even
But
if it's not a function of yours, do we have just statutory authority, period, to provide for busing? See, until they move counties to more of a home rule and allow us to do more of a self-governance, we're only provided the ability to act as the legislature says. And according to an 1873 ruling, it has to be expressly written in statute for us to act. We do get away with a little gray area from time to time, but if you know of something in Title 19 that I'm not aware of where it talks about providing transportation or busing, then
So put it under, put it under the economic development statutes of Oklahoma County if you're not, but don't cut the route that serves a population of our county that needs our help.
yeah, I don't think that's the intent.
Yep.
For sure. It's just
No.
what can we, how can we?
So the economic statute, I'm not going to read it verbatim, but I will read one portion of it verbatim. To otherwise promote the general economic welfare and prosperity of the area, to enter into professional services contract to employ blah, 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 blah.
So the money that we already give for economic development through the Oklahoma Industries Authority would more than suffice for that. So maybe that contract ought to be with OIA, of which we do economic development through.
No, we can do economic development.
Okay.
We do economic
We do,
development.
but we also
Right.
give money to them expressly for that purpose.
Y'all vote how you want. I'm not voting to cut this route.
Well,
If you're not
find a
comfortable,
way to pay for it.
I've offered
legally.
an alternative that I believe is allowable.
Again, it really is my understanding that the route cannot continue without a partnership outside of the city. So I just want to make that was how it was described to us when we asked the question several months ago, just wondering how those partnerships came to be and how they work with other areas, and that was what we were told.
Well, we probably ought to talk to them about removing the stop at the building that's about to be vacated. Before you were in that building, what was in that building?
It was the county home where,
But before you moved into it, like right before you moved into it, the
Right,
years
in
up,
19
it was empty, right? For a
no,
while?
no, it was the county home. We moved there in 1990. And the county home was already located there, but in a different fashion. It was long-term care
Yep.
for a population. So then when we located there, we brought in a variety of services that were being provided by the county and put into that center. And then shortly after that is when the bus route was put in to serve that part of the county because there was no public transit out there in the northeast quadrant.
All right, so the way the contract's written today, what would be the next step for you to move that forward?
We would either have them modify the amount to what we have budgeted, would process back through their end and then through the board for approval. Or we can process it at their requested amount and same steps would go through the board for approval.
And those dollars are still in your budget?
They're in our budget currently, so we can process it out of ours. We could set it for a partial year and go ahead and process it on the front end and then make a change in September. Or we're wide open. We
Well, and you
The-
moving the contract forward to the BOCC, would that not have to go through the ADA's office?
yes, goes through every year.
Well, that would answer whether or not it could go through that budget. Would it not?
The form and legality of the contract?
I mean, if they sign it,
It gives time to ask the question. Yep. There you go. Win some.
all right, any other items on this?
No, sir, not from me, sorry.
All right, any other direction for her contract, for the Embark contract? All right, I guess
could go
proceed
ahead.
with on your normal, process and go from there.
At the budgeted amount or the increased request amount?
What was the amount of budgeted
5,000.
currently?
Budgeted amount is 115,941.
That's what you received authority for, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just do it at the budgeted amount, and then if we want to amend the contract later to take in consideration the requested increase, we can do so at a later time.
Sounds perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Entertain a motion for that item.
Receive.
Motion to receive,
Second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Item 4. I guess it's Mr. Barnes, emergency management, ARPA funding, construction or rehabilitation of existing facilities for emergency management.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. This agenda item is actually to provide information and to let you know what we're working with the consultants on in regards to ARPA funding and what the desire, intent, and need of the Office of Emergency Management is. In working with the consultants, they advised that it would be to our advantage to show due diligence in regards to the collection of costs for different options in regard to the provision of an emergency operations center and emergency management offices. As the agenda item delineates there, this is actually a multi-purpose facility that we are proposing and that we are hoping to be able to move forward with funding. And it's obviously going to be for the offices of emergency management and emergency operations center, which is 24/7, 365 capable. Hopefully to provide space for continuity of operations to include off-site data storage as a redundant site for IT and other county data issues and storage. Backup communications center, possibly tied in with the public safety answering point or 911 PSAP. It also would be to provide storage for supplies such as what we experienced during the COVID-19 with the PPE and those things. We actually had to move those a couple of times and created some issues. Excuse me, and also mentioned specifically the potential construction of an outbuilding, and that would be for storage of vehicles and response equipment and large equipment. The document that I just provided to you is a preliminary document, although it is what I provided to the consultants, showing 3 options that we evaluated. We did do a site visit on option 2 and option 3. Option 1 is complete new construction. This says approximately 9,500 square feet, where it's actually closer to 10,000 plus or minus. And these are estimates, as are the costs. Obviously, as you well know, cost factors are changing daily, not to mention availability of contractors, materials, et cetera. This number is based upon the information we received from an engineering and design company that we've been using. We were actually in the process of retrofitting and changing the shop building at Kraus before it became an item and was sold. And these numbers for the new construction are based on a similar footprint to what that shop building looks like today, reconfigured, and similar square footage, and the cost factor that was provided to us by that engineering and architectural firm. Option number 2 involves the use of social services facility that Christy was just discussing, where they are vacating. And you can see the first 2 items are the roof replacement costs and the HVAC replacement. I did indicate that those are dated cost estimates. They're approximately a year and a half, possibly older than that, so we don't know exactly what those are going to be. That facility is substantially larger than what our initial footprint would be, but it also would provide additional continuity of operation space and other space availability should it be desired. But I don't mind saying that that facility, having walked every floor, every foot, every room last week, that facility is in dire need of substantial work. There's a wide range of issues with that facility, as I'm sure Christy and her staff could attest. It is definitely a problematic building as it stands today. Option number 3 is potential use of Lincoln facility retrofit. Again, the approximate 10,000 square feet is stated there. Interior construction costs, HVAC, some of those type things. The advantage to this facility, among several you see on page 2, I listed a few advantages and disadvantages to the various options. This particular location has the potential to be combined with ACOG's backup public safety answering point. They have a fully functional PSAP located in that facility already, which is their testing training PSAP. And for us to do a backup site, that could be a distinct advantage for Oklahoma County. I had preliminary discussions with Mr. Hawkinson over there, and I have additional discussion to go forward with, but that could be definitely a value added in that location. One of the discussions that Mr. Monroe and I had is that the back portion of that structure, you're probably familiar with the concrete issue back there where the big crack and all that wonderful stuff. At some point, that particular malady is going to have to be addressed anyway. And the potential site that we were talking about there, if in fact that became a reality and the funding were made available, is to go ahead and tear that out and redo that floor and reinforce it. Reinforcing the back portion of the structure would be under the existing roof, but it would change out that floor that is already compromised, and that'd be a substantial cost savings because we would be going under the existing roof within that long corridor area, and then probably with a storage building outside for large equipment and vehicle stuff. But that's just one of the options. I don't want to get into the details of construction and cost factors because they're certainly going to be different any day of the week, any week of the month. But I wanted to bring this item before you and basically identify it as a placeholder for the potential of using ARPA funds for the provision of an emergency operations center for Oklahoma County. I've spoken to you before about the limitations we're currently under, my 500 square feet in this building, and then the site that we have that is shared co-location with the city of Oklahoma City. That is still on their top 5 capital improvement list to be replaced. So that is a short-lived site. I cannot give you a time frame because I don't know. But we are looking at a substantial need moving forward to be able to identify and provide a location for the Emergency Operations Center for Oklahoma County. And I would entertain any questions that you might have.
That back portion of that Lincoln facility, what's the square footage in that area?
It says approximate 5,000 square foot.
No, I think the entire back storage area approximates 10 to 12,000 square feet. What we're talking about doing is taking the southwest corner where the slab has failed in order to build a hardened facility for emergency management under the roof in the enclosure. That slab could come out and a new slab and footing for a hardened facility within the envelope could be constructed there, 5,000, 6,000 square feet or so. Is that right, 5,000?
Yeah, for that space. Think of it as a safe room construction, basically.
And then your outside facility would be in that lot back or in the front where we have space?
Preliminary discussion would be to locate that directly adjacent to the space that Keith described out in that fenced-in, relatively secure area to the southwest side of the building as it stands currently.
Thank you.
David, I appreciate the options, first of all. My understanding and kind of looking at ARPA is new construction is of the last resort and generally not a permissible expense. Is that your understanding as well?
I've had some overhead discussion in that regard. I've not gotten clarity from the consultants. I've not heard from them since we made our submittals or any clarification on that, but I believe that some of the verbiage does at least infer that retrofitting and improvement of current facilities may be preferred.
Okay. And then with regard to option 3, pardon me, option 2, social services.
Yes, sir.
That, while it needs a lot of work, as you said, it provides us with some real flexibility in that it's 3 times larger than the election board facility that we're looking at.
Yes.
And would seem the myriad of possible uses as you've outlined here would be of benefit. I'm thinking not only of storage for PPE, et cetera, but as vac sites, as clinics, testing sites. I mean, it runs the gamut of possibilities when you're dealing with disasters. I think my preference would be to utilize the social services facility. I think in the long run, as the county continues to grow and the nature of the disasters that we face, be it man-made or natural, evolve, it would probably be in our best interest to build out, perhaps not having to use it all, but get it in the state that at a later time we could use it if we need it. So I think, my personal preference would be to see the social services building rehabbed.
If I may, I would agree with you, particularly from the square footage perspective and potential availability of additional space. I'm not sure from a construction perspective how much of the interior spaces of that facility could be modified. I don't know about the load-bearing walls. I know portions of it are concrete block walls and would require substantial engineering and modification there, but that would definitely be a consideration. You're absolutely right. There is a lot of square footage for a lot of different potential uses. Keep in mind that the only hardened area, although not by design, but I won't even hesitate to call it hardened because it certainly would not meet FEMA guidance necessarily, except that it's below grade, would be the basement location, which is a fairly sizable area and could certainly provide the Emergency Operations Center and backup communications capabilities.
Have we talked with Oklahoma City yet? But this is one of their top 5 priorities for moving themselves from their current location. Where are they moving to? Is there a partnership possibility? Is there something that we can?
That I can't answer. I can tell you that I have a 9 o'clock meeting with the new emergency management director tomorrow morning, and that is one of the things that I plan on at least asking. I don't know how much information she's going to have because she is, with all due respect, the new kid on the block in terms of Oklahoma City and emergency management. She's very knowledgeable and a great deal of experience with the city, but emergency management is a completely new component to her. And it's my understanding that part of our discussion tomorrow is also she's interested in looking at what type of potential shared services we might provide. For example, severe weather operations. You gentlemen know how we operate and the capabilities that we have, which are extreme and significant. I feel pretty certain she's interested in partnering in that area, and I plan to explore just how far that goes, just what the interests are. So I can tell you more after tomorrow morning.
So I mean, the partnering with the city.
It's
On
the same
this.
partner that is pushing us out the door and constricting our space at this time. Is that
That is absolutely correct.
correct?
And
Did
that
we
is
build that
definitely
one?
a challenge.
Did we put money into that one?
Miles, I'm not opposed to that, but I think we need to be mindful of the fact that, you know, we have a partnership. We've had a long-standing partnership, and as I mentioned, needs evolve, and over time, their needs will evolve as well. I'm not saying that we make a decision on this today. What I do want, I was under the wrong impression that the consultants would be here today to help us have some. I want them to provide us with a definitive answer as to the permissibility to use ARPA funding for an emergency operations center. That's what I want. I want them to get it to us. I want to get it to us quickly, because whether we're talking, and highly unlikely, new construction, but if we are, or if we're talking rehab, as pointed out, engineers are going to be necessary no matter where we go. We've talked to an architect, and I think you would agree with me, time is of the essence, and we need to find them a home.
Yeah.
So that's really, I mean, what I want.
Miles, in light of your comment, I think there are some efficiencies to be gained in a partnership with the lease agreement, the shared facility, as we've learned the hard way. That would have to be clearly cast in stone, very definitive. My office was instrumental, I don't mind saying, a number of years ago in helping secure, at that time, grant funding from the federal government to make that facility what it is today, including some very substantial communications capabilities and IT technology type things. And as Mr. Blau stated, we were pretty much shoved into a corner, and significant limitations put on our ability to use, certainly to reconfigure, to do any kind. We even have to take an almost active Oklahoma City Council just to do maintenance on equipment we own there if it's connected to their systems. It's a very dicey proposition that's evolved over a number of years. Efficiencies being partnered with Oklahoma City, certainly. We share a significant footprint, but the ins and outs and intricacies of what that agreement would look like would definitely be a very critical piece for future Oklahoma County emergency management.
So it sounds to me like it's probably better, in your opinion, to be on our own than something that we control and we maintain.
I believe so. Yes, sir.
We solely provide.
I believe so. It's difficult to not be able to do maintenance, especially short notice, need it right now type things. That can't happen the way it's currently operated, and that has created challenges.
What are they going to do with that facility when they vacate?
It's a great question. I don't know. It's like a giant rock that's too big to move. I'm not sure what they can do with it. A big portion of the reason that they're looking at a rebuild and a restart is the antiquated construction technology in that facility does not lend itself to cost-effective maintenance and repairs. And I'm being very kind. I can give you several examples. And some of the items are pretty critical infrastructure. You'll notice, you go out there now, the little portico with the 3 portable toilets out there. Those have come into use on occasion. They are not full-time necessarily used, but
Oh, I
it's
thought
those
those were for
types.
So
concerts.
moving sewage
wish.
out of the basement? Is that what we're talking about?
That's, yes, lift station because of the
Lift
configuration,
stations,
how that's built. There's
sewage
a
out of
holding
the basement.
tank that's problematic. The generator has been problematic, although they have an above-ground solution to that currently. It's just one thing after another, and there's corridors. There's actually utility shafts, and that sounds like a big piece, but there's small tunnels and things underneath that building where utilities and connectivity run, and they are standing water. It is not a healthy building. And for them to do maintenance and repair in those hidden spaces, they're still finding things they didn't know existed. It is a problem.
All right, so these 3 options before us are in a form of an application that the consultants are looking at right now,
They're in the form of a submittal for review to the consultants. Yes, sir.
and not an application.
An application for potential funding. I don't know the right terminology in regards to where we are with the consultants or.
I don't know that application would be the term that we would use for in-house projects. But
Well,
6 of one, half
the-
dozen of the other.
What I'm trying to get at, the form that IT worked on with them, that's an application form. Is that the process you used?
Yes.
So that's what's submitted. All right. Entertain a motion to receive this report.
So moved.
Second,
Motion second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
I'll make an additional motion that the consultant report back to this committee at our June 14th meeting as to the permissibilities of the use of ARPA funds for an emergency operations center for Oklahoma County, based upon the 3 submittals.
Second.
Thank you, Miles.
Motion second before us. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm going to skip down to item 7 since there's obviously disdain here. This is I move that we are extending the application process for internal till the June 14th meeting. They have 40 applications before them. And there was a delay of 1 week opening the application process.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say
Hold on,
aye.
wait just a second. Why are we extending it again, potentially?
Well, we're allowing 2 more weeks for them to review the 40 applications that are before them. And then they will present those to us on the June 14th meeting. And then our recommendations would move forward to the June 21st BOCC.
But there was also a delay in opening it.
By 1 week?
So unless we want to schedule another special,
And then,
we're just pushing it to the next regular
Why?
schedule.
and then what was the other date you're saying delay, Michael?
I'd have to rewind the tape at this point. Let me just start over.
Please.
I am moving to extend the process of the internal applications for these the applications will be presented to us at the June 14th PNG meeting for us to send any recommendations to the BOCC June 21st meeting. And that's my motion.
Still a second.
Sure.
Was that a second?
Yeah.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Yes, that's fine.
All right, now we'll go back up to 5, discussion of possible action regarding proposed projects, programs undertaken by the BOCC Trust or a beneficiary trust of Oklahoma County.
Well, 5 and 6 were crafted to allow our consultants to weigh in um, on how we might go about addressing the needs of not only Oklahoma County government, but Oklahoma County itself. And since how they're not here, they can't do that. But I think I would like to take advantage of number 5 and ask Christy to perhaps begin to revive the grants that we used to do. You know, those were limited by statutory interpretation as to what you could and you couldn't do. However, there's a new bill that's been passed that I believe the governor has signed that allows the BOCC to expend these funds in accordance with federal regulations. So if you could begin the process of at least informing us of the nature of those grants, the types of services that they provided. I know there was food bank, there was transportation to and from doctors, etc. I would greatly appreciate that. So if we need that as a motion, I'll make it as a motion. If not, okay.
And as far as I can tell, we're still under the application process, so if they want to apply with those in mind, send an application in.
Fine. Put all of that back in an application then.
I mean, we're tracking those that are within the city and those that have applied for funds to the city. And I get that we're looking to do partnerships and multiply money. So I just want to make sure that we're doing that before we get too invested into it.
Well, we used to put money into the community to help. So I just think it's time we do what we can.
Money into the community to help. I mean, building roads and bridges is helping the community.
Okay.
Just so I'm clear, so for right now, we're wanting to just reiterate what we previously had provided through grants and put that in the form of the ARPA application.
For instance, I believe we had grants that did for maybe not the right term, food assistance. Put a category in for food assistance, for transportation, for the elderly. Put one in for that. Whatever those broad categorical items were that our grants used to address, submit those in, please.
Got it.
Thank you.
Why couldn't those individuals just apply no matter what?
Well, because we haven't opened up the application process to the outside world yet, and if we could do it internally just like we used to do, it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. I just want to see some movement. We haven't seen much movement.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you look across the country, there's not a lot of movement with this money, period. There's just not. Your consultants will tell you the same. Crack open a newspaper, it'll tell you the same. Everybody's waiting for much more definitive guidance than what's out there. And I believe that that's coming.
Well, if it comes, we'll adjust. But to this point, we're spending $165,000-$170,000 per month for consultants. Let's put them to work. And I realize they're looking at 40 things right now. So adding 5 or 6 more isn't going to hurt.
5 or 6 more categories.
Well,
Of
yeah,
which
they've
40
already
people could apply per category.
well,
I mean, math. But
asking doesn't mean it's going to happen. Ultimately, the board decides. It's not me. I'm just trying to give the board options. I think they should have a full quiver of arrows.
Do you have another question?
Well, if that's the motion.
Well, there didn't need to be a motion on this item when she can fill out the app for internal request. Any other items under item 5?
No, thank you.
Being similar in nature, item 6.
Yeah, that's to receive updates on things that we've approved.
Okay. Well, we'll ask that we'll definitely ask that 5 and 6 be forwarded to the June 14th meeting.
Yeah,
Item 7's been discussed. 8, no action needed. Item 9.
And Michael, as you pointed out on 5 and 6, 8 is intended to be a reoccurring item. And 9, I'll ask that we defer it to the June 14th meeting, or if you call a special meeting prior to that meeting.
All right, so item 9 will be to the next policy and governance meeting. I'll second that. Motion is second. All those to defer, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any citizens' participations? Seeing none. Any board comments? D1?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure most of you know by now, but Commissioner Johnson passed away. Her services will be this Friday, 11 o'clock at St. John's, and I believe that's 57th and Kelly, if I remember correctly.
Is there auxiliary parking?
I'm not aware, Miles. I can try to find out.
It's a small parking lot.
Yeah, I can try to find out and let you
I
know.
looked at that and it was like, Houston?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was your comments, or did you have any other?
No, it's passing of a legend for sure, and that's why I asked about the parking. I'm sure that a lot of people will be there to share their respects to what was a great lady to the city and the county.
If you want to wear yellow and black, I'm sure it would probably be appreciated.
Yellow and black.
All right. Forget how you say it, but if no other items before this.
Any new business? That's not on there. Yeah,
It's a special.
you can't do new business on
I was
specials.
trying to adjourn us.
Oh, okay. Oh, you want to know the language on that?
Yeah, say that
See
again.
no objections to adjournment. That'll be the order.
All right, we're adjourned.
Without objection. That is the
Without
order.
objection, that'll be the order.
That's
There you
right.
go. I'll get it too.